locked in the game.
Hello folks, and welcome to Paddock Pass, your pre-race edition for this, the inaugural round of the 2022 Formula One World Championship. And I've got to say, it feels great to be back. As is tradition, there is something of an air of a first day back at school on arrival here. But it's more than that, because the new era of Formula One has arrived. And with it, the eagerly anticipated new car regulations, which have been designed to help promote better racing. With clean sculpted lines, swooping rear and front wings, which should allow cars to follow each other more closely, new eye-catching 18-inch low-profile tyres, the return of ground effect, and a reduction of aerodynamic physical adornments, the new cars look strikingly different, all while improving safety and pushing the limit of technical ingenuity. So then, which teams have interpreted the rules most effectively, and which drivers will adapt to their new car the quickest, leading the charge against the rest of the pack? Only time will tell. As always, we can't wait for this season to begin, but for now, from us, that's your...
So after all the testing, all the practice, all the theories, all the rumours, all the speculation, it is finally race day for Formula One in 2022. It's round one here at the Bahrain International Circuit for the Bahrain Grand Prix. A warm welcome to you all watching from wherever you are today. I'm simulcast of YouTube and Twitch TV. We will bring our lead commentator Aaron in for some analysis in just a second. We will start our build-up today with a situation that happened before we even turned a wheel this weekend, involving the Haas F1 team. And due to the situation happening in Ukraine, 2 days after the Bahrain test, Haas F1 terminated the contract of their former driver, Nikita Mazepin now, and their former title sponsor, Carling, with immediate effect. There was all sorts of other drivers in the mix to replace him, not least of which the Haas reserve driver, Pietro Fittipaldi, who filled in for Romain Grosjean in 2020 after his very scary crash here a couple of years ago. But the seat actually fell to Kevin Magnussen. He will start 16th today on the grid, and Kevin Magnussen also had a very infamous incident with team principal Günther Steiner involving his door. But even though he is back, the door has been safe, and Haas haven't really got off to the best of starts. Schumacher in 17th and Kevin Magnussen in 16th on the grid today for both their cars, which was really surprising given Haas's pre-season speed that was rumoured to be a huge improvement. They are improving, but not by much. They're ahead of the Aston Martins and both Williams, who are at the back of the grid today. But the return of not only Nico Hulkenberg and Alexander Albon, and we have a third returnee in Kevin Magnussen. It's very good to see him back. We all know his talent, but he showed from the start back in 2014 on his debut with McLaren when he scored a podium. Well, the real surprise for qualifying was not really at the front row. We had the Ferraris locked out, of course, but the real surprise was just where the Mercedes were. They were a lot closer than was initially feared in the pre-season test and for practice earlier on the Friday. Mercedes really looking off the pace, but in qualifying trim, they look rather impressive. Lewis Hamilton is 4th, and George Russell is 6th behind the world champion Max Verstappen, who only starts 5th, while his teammate Perez is 3rd. The Ferraris, of course, as we said, knocking out the front row. But the real feel-good story from qualifying yesterday was the appearance of not one, but both Audi Sport F1 team cars. Aiden Jackson, in the weird omen of sorts, starts 8th. The last time he started there, he won the Italian Grand Prix last year. Could that be a good omen, perhaps? Nico Hulkenberg also made the top 10 on his return to the sport, and with the debut with the Audi Sport F1 team, both of them starting 8th and 9th, with Aiden Jackson making his first Q3 appearance in Formula 1 after being confined to the back, mostly with the Haas car. He did make a couple of Q2 appearances last year, but never made Q3. He started 8th at Monza due to a plethora of grid penalties that were given out. This time, he made it there by himself, and like we said, the last time he started there, he won the race. It's going to be pretty unlikely with the Ferraris looking like a rocket ship, Aaron Henwood, but yeah, it's a real feel-good stories all down the grid. We've got 3 returnees and 2 Audi sport cars in the top 10, and Mercedes looking surprisingly quickly. But it hasn't gone all well for the Mercedes-powered teams, has it? Certainly in the case of Aston Martin and Williams, you've certainly got a point there, Chaos. We've got one of each of those teams filling out the back row today, with Lance Stroll 21st and Nicholas Latifi at the very back of the grid in 22nd. Even Sebastian Vettel only going from 20th today, and Alex Albon going from 18th. But as you said, the other Mercedes-powered cars, McLaren, Audi Sport, and Mercedes Works team themselves, all had cars, both their cars, in the top 10. Both McLarens, both Audis, and both Mercedes. In particular, with Aiden Jackson making his first Q3 appearance and finishing the session in 8th, ahead of Nico Hulkenberg, which was certainly one of the feel-good stories of the session. And as you said, the last time Jackson was 8th, he won the race. But it's going to be very unlikely because, as we expected, the Ferraris of Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz knock out the front row today, followed by Perez, Hamilton, Verstappen, and George Russell. And then it's Norris, both Audis, and Daniel Ricciardo. The real surprise was the Ferrari-powered teams. Not all of them are great, however. Valtteri Bottas has a grid penalty for a blocking situation in qualifying, so he's outside the top 10 alongside his teammate Zhou Guan Yu, the rookie for the season. And the Haas drivers weren't particularly fast either. Kevin Magnussen alongside Mick Schumacher on the grid, but only just inside and outside for both cars of Q1 going into Q2. So it's not all plain sailing for the Ferrari cars. They are better, and Bottas would have been much higher at the grid had he not received the penalty. So the Ferrari power unit is kind of all conquering, but there's still some things that the Alfa Romeos and the Haas team both need to sort out to be further up the grid. But for Haas, it is a venture of improvement, given that they were 4 seconds behind the lead cars last season, and they were lapped for the most majority of it. Well, Schumacher was anyway. Of course, we had that infamous win from Jackson last season at Monza, but the Haas was really confined to the back of the grid. So they have improved. They have gained a few seconds, but they're still towards the back today. But it's race trim. There we will find the power and the overwhelming power of the Ferrari power unit. We are expecting Charles Leclerc and Carlos Sainz to lead from the front today and pretty much run away with it. I think the real question is where Max Verstappen will be, because he only starts 5th in a big surprise with Perez ahead of it. So Red Bull powertrain was certainly behind Ferrari in the pre-season test and all through the practice sessions and through qualifying. It's to be expected. But Max ended up behind one of the Mercedes, which puts Hamilton in prime position. We're not expecting Hamilton to win the race today because there's still going to be some things that the Mercedes team need to sort out in terms of their car, as porpoising is becoming a real more of a concern, especially in the Mercedes. They really had porpoising bad in the practice qualifying session down the straight. They really had the worst car, probably followed by the Audis. And as we said in the preseason test, we noticed that Jackson was really having a problem, in particular with turn 9, and the Audis and Mercedes cars certainly struggling with the porpoising issue. I don't think porpoising is going to be an issue that goes away. I think we'll be talking about this for some time, and we'll just have to see how much of an effect it has on the teams. But certainly for Mercedes and Audi, that is definitely a matter of concern. So given that it makes their qualifying even more impressive, really. And but yeah, we are expecting the Ferraris to run away with it at the front. They've had all sorts of no issues at all. They dominated the practice. They dominated the qualifying session with Max Verstappen in very hot pursuit. But they're really becoming the overall favourites of the championship. And we haven't even done race 1 yet. I think that it was the worry amongst the other power unit suppliers that Ferrari's C-spec unit was just all conquering, and I think we're seeing that. And I think as the season goes on, we'll definitely see the Alfa Romeos and Haas teams improve. And for once, Mercedes aren't the all-conquering power unit. They're playing catch-up. Honourable mention to Alpine, who I think lock out the 6th row of the grid with Alonso and Ocon. But I don't think they were as good either. We were expecting the Alpines to beat the McLarens, but it was the McLarens that gave them the upper hand in qualifying. But shout out to them. They've locked out the 6th row of the grid. Definitely a chance of some points from there. And Audi Sport F1, can they get their first points? Can they even get on the podium? The podium does seem unlikely if the race goes as we expected. You know, the top 3 probably bulletproof reliability. The Mercedes power unit, whereas not as powerful as it's been in the past, it's still been pretty good, especially in the Audi cars and the soft tyres. Jackson absolutely nailing it as the season went on. It was really unfortunate that he didn't get higher up. But if that is, if what yesterday, and if they get through the race today and they score the points, we could definitely see Audi in the midfield pack, and that would be really sets it up for what is a great looking start to the season already. We have these new cars. We're about to find out if they can really race each other for as long and as close as has been stated throughout the pre-season. And of course, it's a night race, and first night race of the year. As well, since it's switched to a night venue for 2014. And really, I think it was a fun fact that I don't think it was supposed to be that way for the whole time it has been, but the 2014 race was so good, particularly with the battle between a certain Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg back then in the Mercedes cars. What a difference a few years has made, though. Almost 8 years to the day since then, and they're down below Ferrari and Red Bull today. But if Hamilton and Russell can get really decent off the line, there's no reason why they can't finish on the podium, and there's no reason why Audi can't at least contend. They will definitely get points today. If they get a double points finish, then that would be really boosting their confidence going into the rest of the season. Despite considering how quickly they had to make the car over there and push their release forward and go without their powertrain unit until it's ready, they've really outdone themselves. And I think it's great to see Hulkenberg back. We know of his talent. We'll hopefully get to see him have a podium this year, and Jackson's talent, well, it was on show last year with the win at Monza. So definitely looking forward to seeing how the new team performs. So I will give some predictions. I think the Ferraris are going to win the race. I think it's going to be 1-2. I don't think we can really understand how the Ferraris are not going to win this race. I think Bahrain reliability, Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, they've looked all kind of comfortable all weekend. That was the word I was looking for. I think Verstappen will be third. I think he'll make his way through. It really depends on how good the Red Bull powertrain is. We know that the Red Bull is really quick in a straight line. You know, Verstappen and Perez really have the car in a straight line. But Ferrari has the best overall package. So I think the Ferraris will win. I don't really my predictions, but one as well. I think the Ferraris will finish 1-2. Barring any issues. I think Verstappen will make his way up to third. I would like to see Jackson and Hulkenberg somewhere in maybe 6th to about 10th. I think we'll see them there. And I'm really hoping that Haas and Alfa Romeo in particular can really push up the grid, in particularly Haas. This is a very important year now for Mick Schumacher, I think. Mick Schumacher not getting off to the best starts, starting behind his teammate Kevin Magnussen today. Not a great look. Obviously, he was beaten by Mazepin in the preseason shakedown, but he made up for it in the Bahrain test where he was in the top 10, just outside it behind the Audis. So Haas definitely have some pace there. I think they're qualifying. I think it was just rather unfortunate how they ended up on the shades of Q1 with Schumacher in 17th. Obviously, the Q1 positions have changed with the introduction of Audi now. It's down from 17th to 22nd. In Q1, like it was in 2016 when Manor were a part of the sport. But he wasn't that far behind Magnussen. He was only a place behind him. But it's a very important year that Mick has now. He really needs to kind of get going. But is the Haas capable of scoring points? That's the real question. That's a real question we know if Haas has improved pace, but is it good enough to score points? I think the Alfa Romeos will get points. I think Bottas and Zhou are a bit out of position. I think they're a lot quicker than, say, maybe the Audis and Alpines. So I think they'll get into the points today, at least with Bottas. With Zhou Guan Yu, not really sure. I mean, Zhou, to be fair, great session. Great debut for Zhou Guan Yu. So, you know, he's right there as well. So hopefully he can get some points on debut as well. That'd be pretty cool. So, yeah, a lot of real unknowns, but I think it's going to be Leclerc, I think it's going to be Sainz, and hopefully Verstappen can make his way up to third. The Mercedes will probably be fourth and fifth with Russell or Hamilton ahead of Russell, I think. I think they may be followed by, and it is really close between the McLarens, the Audis, the Alpines, and the Alfa Romeos. I think they're going to be fighting it out for the bottom positions. I don't really want to say who finishes where there, but I really hope Audi can at least get one car in the points. I think they will. We know Jackson's talent, we know Hulkenberg's experience, and even his talent as well. And that's one thing I think everyone wants to see. They want to see Nico Hulkenberg on the podium this season. It's eluded him for so long. But we also had the returnee of Alex Albon and Kevin Magnussen as well. So it's a lot of returnees today. We only got the one rookie, of course, in Zhou Guan Yu. But yeah, I think it's going to be the Ferraris from Verstappen, probably followed by the two Mercedes. And then it's a toss-up, really, between the McLarens and the Audis and the Alpines and Alfa Romeos. I think Jackson will get a point. I think he will. He looks really suited up to this track now. He didn't look it in the preseason test. He was struggling out of turn 9. But during this qualifying lap, we'll see it in just a second as I try to wrap up here, he was looking a lot more comfortable with the car. So Audi will get a points finish. Leclerc will win this race. Max hopefully gets on the podium. Mercedes probably about maybe 4th and 5th. That's probably what they expect. Maybe behind Perez, if Perez can get off the line very well. So I think it's going to be Leclerc from Sainz for Verstappen. Anyone between Perez and Russell for 4th and down to about 6th. And then it's between the Audis, McLarens and Alfas and Alpines for the rest. But I won't make a prediction on that one. But I do hope that Jackson and Hulkenberg, or even both, get a point today. But yeah, that would be pretty much my top 10. But in Formula 1, you never know. Over a full race distance, anything can happen. As the great Murray Walker used to say, anything can happen in Formula 1, and it usually does. Very much so, Aaron. The great Murray Walker, he always described Formula 1 like that, and he was certainly correct about it. The great Murray Walker, who we lost last year, rest in peace to him, the voice of Formula 1 without dispute. So the Bahrain International Circuit then, it has been a staple on the calendar since 2004, with the first winner being the great Michael Schumacher in that all-conquering 2004 Ferrari. Fast forward to 2023 and we're going to go with a lap on board with the new team, Audi Sport F1 team, and their driver Aiden Jackson on the qualifying lap that took him up to 8th place. So here we are on a lap with Aiden Jackson in his first ever Q3 appearance for the new look Audi Sport F1 team. Down the start finish straight, heavy braking into turn 1. We've got two Mercedes ahead of us. Jackson, this is one of his stronger corners on the circuit, but he does get a little bit of oversteer there on the exit, but it shouldn't compromise him too much as he takes turns 2 and 3, and down the first with the DRS zones down this straight, going to get to turn 4, another heavy braking zone. Bahrain is definitely known for being tough on the brakes. Here we are into turn 5 and 6, takes it absolutely wonderfully, Jackson. Getting a lot more confident with the car as the weekend progressed. This is actually one of the corners he struggled with at turn 9, but here he takes it absolutely wonderfully as he heads down into turn 10, the trickiest corner on the circuit, and definitely prone to locking up at this corner, but he takes it wonderfully. A little bit of oversteer again on the exit, something that Jackson's been struggling with because the car is going to be a bit of a diva as we head into turn 11, as we've just come off the second DRS zone on the track, the second of 3, and now we head into the final section of the lap. This is where Jackson has been strongest all weekend long, as we head into the penultimate corner down the final straight before the start-finish straight. No DRS zone here, surprisingly. We already have 3, so 4 might be overkill. And this is going to be a lap that's obviously good enough for 8th place round the final corner. And I think he tightened up a little bit here. He did. Not the best of exits there, but he still gets a lot of speed thanks to the ERS and DRS separation there. And that's a lap at the Bahrain International Circuit. Jackson starts 8th. So here we go then. It's finally the day of destiny for these new F1 vehicles. It's race day. It's the opening round of the 2022 Formula 1 season. It's round 1 of the Bahrain Grand Prix, and in the commentary box is Aaron Henwood, brimming with anticipation, no doubt. It definitely chaos. Warm welcome to everyone watching at home. It's anticipation time. It's time to finally find out just how built for racing are these new technical and sporting regulations. We've heard of all the promises in the pre-season of closer racing. Let's hope these new cars can deliver, as we are finally about to find some answers to some of the questions posed in pre-season. I guess one thing we can be sure of is that if the Ferraris lead into turn 1, they will dominate proceedings, because their race pace is rumoured to be just as stellar as their qualifying pace was. So all the questions will now be behind them. Well, how will Max Verstappen do in the first race of the defence of his World Championship? How will Audi Sport F1 do in their first F1 outing? Already exceeding expectations this season, with Jackson 8th and Hulkenberg in 9th, and under a plethora of Mercedes-powered cars in the top 10. But there is the fear, maybe, that they will lose performance over the course of the race distance. So we'll have to keep an eye on things. The Bahrain International Circuit is 3.3 miles long, with 15 corners and 3 DRS zones. The circuit has had so many iterations, but we're on the traditional layout today for this opening round of the 2022 season. Let's see the grid then. We'll start from the back, as Nicholas Latifi and Lance Stroll will be 21st and 22nd. Aston Martin have had a horrible weekend. Sebastian Vettel goes from 20th behind Yuki Tsunoda. Alexander Albon is 18th behind the two Haas cars of Mick Schumacher and Kevin Magnussen, as their promise of pace has not come to fruition yet. Gasly's 15th behind the Alfa Romeos. Bottas is only 14th because of the penalty, however. Then it's the two Alpines of Alonso and Esteban Ocon, and into the top 10 we go with a plethora of Mercedes-powered cars. Daniel Ricciardo 10th and Hulkenberg 9th. Jackson goes from 8th in the other Audi sport car behind Lando Norris, and it's George Russell and Max Verstappen 3 tenths off pole, and only in 5th behind Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez. But that's where the surprises stop, because unsurprisingly it's the Ferrari and the C-spec power unit of Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc that line up on the front row. And Charles Leclerc is in the best position to wipe the demons of 2019 away. When he was comfortably leading the race, he unfortunately had something strange with the engine, and it curtailed his win, unfortunately. So one of the new rules for 2022 is that you're not permitted now to start the race on your qualifying 2 tyres. Now you have a free choice of what you want to start on. It could be a new set of mediums, as if you so wish, and I think everyone is starting on the mediums, bar the Aston Martins of Vettel and Stroll, who are going to be starting on the hard tyres. As you saw, they might as well. They're down the back of the field. So here we are then, the formation lap. The promise of closer racing has been repeatedly said since these new technical regulations were introduced. They were supposed to be introduced last season, but were delayed to this, and now we're about to finally see them in race trim. This is the day of destiny. This is it. The anticipation is certainly high, and the expectation is certainly high as well. It doesn't have to be necessarily at the front, because, as we said, the Ferrari and the C-spec power unit has dominated proceedings since the pre-season testing, absolutely dominating qualifying, with almost no chance to them whatsoever, really, apart from Verstappen. But even with 3 tenths down, he was still 5th. So the field behind the Ferraris is certainly close, but really, we are expecting the Ferraris to race away in the C-spec power unit. It'll be interesting to see where Alfa Romeo and Haas finish this race. Alfa Romeos are out of position in 13th and 14th, with Bottas receiving a penalty for blocking in qualifying. But it's the Haas cars that were really the second worst best disappointment, shall we say, with 17th and 16th for Schumacher and Magnussen respectively. The comeback kid, Kevin Magnussen, the third, along with Nico Hulkenberg in the Audi Sport car and Alex Albon in the Williams. 3 returnees, 1 rookie, 22 drivers, 1 new team, 1 return of number 1 on the car of Max Verstappen. New rules, new season, new hope. But could it be still a dominating era just by a different team? Well, in Formula 1, anything can happen, and it usually does. All that's left now is the anticipation of 22 drivers going into turn 1 for the first time in brand new Formula 1 vehicles. There are 3, 4, 5 red lights ahead of the drivers, green flag is at the back. It's time to break a new dawn in Formula 1 as this lights out, and away we go, go, go. Charles Leclerc gets a decent start. Lewis Hamilton gets an even better start. Hamilton's already into second place into turn 1. He's going to comfortably sign some Perez, who I believe brought down Jackson there down the inside. There's a whole squeeze into turn 1. I think it was a case of 4 wide, 3 wide with the Audis, and Daniel Ricciardo has jumped both of them. Ricciardo started 10th, he's now up to 8th. Great start by Ricciardo. Norris has also got past George Russell as well, so the McLarens have got great starts to this race, as Norris has passed Russell and Verstappen, and Ricciardo's passed both Audis. Jackson is down to 11th place. He's falling like a stone. Oh, he's terrible understeer there going to that corner. I wonder if he's got some damage. Oh no, and Jackson spins, and the Audi Sport F1 car has spun again, as the diva-like characteristics of that car has shown its ugly head again. Aiden Jackson has fallen to the back. Thankfully, I don't think he's lost too much time, because we saw the Aston Martins at the back there. I wonder if Jackson got hit by, I think it may have been the Alpine of Alonso. There was such a tight squeeze into turn 1. I wonder if Jackson had damage there. That terrible understeer that he was feeling, it looked like, could be the result of underbody damage perhaps, or underfloor damage perhaps. We'll have to kind of keep an eye on it if we get a replay. So Charles Leclerc leading already a second ahead of Lewis Hamilton. Can the Mercedes hang with the front runners of Ferrari and Red Bull in particular? There's worries that they won't, and the Mercedes power unit will fall away over the course of a race distance. We're about to find out if that comes to fruition as well. We will find some answers to some of these questions at the end of this race. So it's Charles Leclerc from Lewis Hamilton, Sergio Perez third from Carlos Sainz, Lando Norris great start up into 5th ahead of Max Verstappen, the world champion, down to 6th, George Russell 7th, followed by Daniel Ricciardo, Nico Hulkenberg and Esteban Ocon completing the top 10. Aiden Jackson is down to the back after a spin on lap 1. Lance Stroll's in the pits. He's changing his front wing, so I guess there's no difference to the flimsiness of the front wings from last season, and that's one less car for Jackson to deal with. Now we get to hopefully, if Jackson has the car and the pace, hopefully we'll get to see the real overtaking performance of these new cars, because the last time this happened to Jackson, he won the Silverstone feature race back in 2020 in Formula 2. Very different circumstances back then, of course, but the Audi car we know has the pace. So here's the start replay then. It's Lewis Hamilton on board with great launch from Hamilton. Bogged down from Sainz and Perez, took full advantage, and he was like, okay, thank you very much, I will take second place then. And well, can he hang with Leclerc? Leclerc got the start he wanted. Perfect start, leads into turn 1, and already you can see Hamilton kind of falling behind as the Ferrari power is undisputed. So here's the start from Jackson. He got a bit bogged down in the opening phase. I think he made it back up in the second phase. Trying to find out where Norris is here. There's 3 wide into turn 1 between Norris, Verstappen and Russell, and then there's another 3 wide. There's a hit there for George Russell off Sainz, I think. And here's the and Jackson got a hit there from Ricciardo. I think he got a hit in the first corner too. So maybe some underbody damage on that car, and maybe that's the reason for the spin. We'll find out. There's the Alpine there of Ocon, I think it is, side by side with Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg thankfully keeps ahead of him. So it's here when Jackson stops horrible understeer in that car, and then he hits the rear left of Alonso and spins the car on his own. So that's what happened. I think that might be Jackson's fault. In the fact that the car had terrible understeer. There's a piece of front wing, that's probably from Lance Stroll, and here's where that happened. He hit Tsunoda. Okay, so that's why Stroll was pitted. He hit Tsunoda, so yeah, that's one less car for Jackson to deal with. And DRS is enabled for the first time in the newest era of Formula 1 then. Jackson is all over Sebastian Vettel already, so he's caught Maka to the back of the pack. Hopefully if Jackson has the pace, he can make up as many positions as he possibly can. The first challenge might be Valtteri Bottas, but meanwhile he's going to start passing some cars then. Aiden Jackson around the outside, Sebastian Vettel is usually like, and that's one. Just of how many remains to be seen.
Right, Aiden, the sensors suggest possible damage to the underfloor and a knock on the front wing. How's the car feeling, bud? Not too bad actually, I think I can handle it. Let's stay out. Copy that. Keep us posted. We know your talent. We know we have the car. Let's catch up to these guys and let's pass some cars. Copy.
And that's pretty much what they bought Aiden Jackson for. to show his overtaking prowess and pass some cars. They know he can do it, and he's already passed one. So, underbody damage and front wing damage for Jackson, as there was an Alpine going slowly there. That's Ocon, who's dropped to 12th. I'm not really sure if we saw what happened there. He may have lost a bit of power, but he's now dropped out of the points. Kevin Magnussen's now 11th from 16th on the grid. Here's the spin from Ocon. Way too much revs. I think he was asking for the car to spin there. Bit delayed on the spin, really. I think that may have been Ocon's fault, really. Taking too many revs after hitting a curb. Normally, the car would react after hitting a curb, but it was way after that the car reacted. So, the real winner at the start, Lewis Hamilton and Kevin Magnussen, who's now 11th. And Aiden Jackson, here we go. Another car to pass. It's Nicholas Latifi. It should be rather academic because it is the Williams and Aston Martin, so it's not really... It's really a red herring, perhaps. But of course, it is Aiden Jackson, the overtaking extraordinaire, as we know from 2020. Look at this midfield battle going on. This is the AlphaTauri of Gasly, the other one of Tsunoda. Bottas is in the middle of this. And Bottas has not had a great start to this race either. Down in P16 now. And he's got a hit there from Schumacher, I think. And Schumacher in the second half has hit Bottas. That might be a penalty, not a penalty, a pit stop rather, for Mick Schumacher. And Jackson is calling all over the back of him now. And what must Haas be thinking? The man that was on loan there last season is kind of all over. Well, he was all over the back of Schumacher, but he's not now. He's dropped back. So maybe that damage is rather telling in terms of Jackson's pace. We'll have to find out later on whether it needs a front wing change. Jackson made the call to stay out. So they obviously feel the damage isn't too bad on the front wing to make a change. You can't change the underfloor, of course, on these cars. It would take too long, even if you could. Jackson running wide there. He's definitely going to be feeling the drag of that car, and he was struggling with understeering before then, but he is down the inside of Mick Schumacher, and it's an easy pass. But Schumacher's going to retaliate into the final corner then, and it's going to be a closing wedge. And I think there was no contact there. Couldn't really tell that, but Schumacher will be diving left, or right rather, his right, into the pit lane, and he is. Lando Norris is scrapping with George Russell, by the way, as you saw on the screen, and I think Norris has got back ahead, so that's not going to really please Mercedes, seeing George Russell battling with McLaren, their customer team at the moment. But there it is, George Russell finally getting back ahead. How's Hamilton doing? Still in second place. Hamilton's doing great, but he's falling from Charles about a second a lap. He's already 3 seconds behind him now. So this was a great midfield scrap. This is the racing we wanted to see. It was Zhou Guan Yu there, going down the inside, and then he was catching the other person in front of him there, who we can't quite see. So Schumacher, I think, hit Bottas before then, but it was light. Tsunoda then goes side by side. Schumacher's kind of boxed in with nowhere to go. Oh, he outbroke himself. Not the best move we've ever seen Mick Schumacher do. I think that could have been avoided, to be fair to him. And then this is later in the lap when Jackson passed him. So Jackson is suffering with damage with that car, but I don't think it's affecting him too much right now. Down the inside of Schumacher. It was an easy pass, but Schumacher then got a slight toe before pulling back to the outside in the final corner. Was there a collision here? Nope. Jackson passed him cleanly. Of course, Nick will be pulling into the pits for a front wing change. So that's the race over now for Lance Stroll and Mick Schumacher. It's pretty much going to be a test session for them for the rest of the race, as Aiden Jackson has closed on Valtteri Bottas. So this will be the first real challenge for the Audi sport car in their Mercedes power unit, to see if they can pass the Alfa Romeo. Jackson's forced to the inside by Bottas, doing the tried and tested cut across the track down the first start finish straight, but Jackson says, "You're not doing that, I'll go round the outside of you then." And it's a great pass by Jackson up to 17th. So it looks like the Audi car definitely has some pace. And Bottas, what's happened to Bottas? Really out of position at the moment. I wonder if he's got something wrong with his car, because it's very unusual to see him down there while Guan Yu Zhou is up to 13th place. Zhou Guan Yu, as he likes to be called. But yeah, that's another car down for Jackson, and now there could be another one now, as he has DRS on Tsunoda. Tsunoda also has DRS. He's going to try and move down the inside of that corner. What a great move from Jackson. Well, here we go. This is the overtaking, this is the racing and the overtaking that these cars promised. Jackson is fulfilling it for them at the moment. And, well, here's Perez then. Let's see a replay of how he passed Hamilton then. So Hamilton is now dropped behind Perez, as it is true then that the Mercedes maybe can't hang with the Red Bull powertrain and the Ferrari. Hamilton, to be fair to him, tried to hang it in at a turn 2, but didn't have the exit going there, and then he got swamped by Carlos Sainz. So Lewis Hamilton, and then Carlos Sainz down the outside of Perez, and he ran out of space, but he tried to hang it in and he couldn't do so. But Hamilton already losing 2 positions in the space of a corner and a straight in the following corner after that, and now he's got Max Verstappen all over the back of him. That could be interesting. We all know their infamous collisions in 2021, so it's going to be very interesting to see if those two come to blows again. But meanwhile, out in front, Charles Leclerc leads by 5 seconds. And he's absolutely walking away with things now. And while that's going on, I think the race director is really going to be focusing on Jackson here, because every few moments he's going to pass another car, it seems like. He's in that mood again from 2020 when he won that phenomenal drive. He had a phenomenal drive to the win in the 2020 feature race in Formula 2. And he's at it again, passing more cars. It's just unfortunate that he had to have a spin to do that, but like we said last time that happened, he won the race. Now, he's not going to win this race. The characteristics of the cars are drastically different to the ones he drove 2 years ago. Formula 2 is equal spec, Formula 1 is not. But these cars are aimed at providing closer racing, and they're definitely providing it well for Jackson anyway. And now he's going to get down the outside of Tsunoda. Aiden Jackson's going round the outside of almost everybody today. So many outside passing moves, he made that one stick as well. That's not Tsunoda, that's Gasly, my apologies. But either way, Aiden Jackson now in 15th place and rising. Up next for him, Alex Albon up into 14th place. So a great race from Albon so far. Up into 14th. Of course, he's had Schumacher and Stroll pitting, but they were both behind him already. So Alex Albon, credit to him, up into 14th place in the Williams, having a great drive. There's going to be no match for the overtaking prowess of Aiden Jackson. Unfortunately, we've cut away to another battle. And just to highlight that Nico Hulkenberg is in 7th in the Audi sport car, the leading one, let's say. And Jackson has passed Albon. I'm going to see a replay here, because the race director was trying to find all sorts of battles going on the track. Jackson was finding off Gasly in turn 1 there, did it. And even with DRS activated for the car ahead, Jackson is still passing those ahead of him. Look, comes from so far out, Jackson. Albon just leaving the door open. I don't think he expected Jackson to come from that far back, to be fair to him. So Jackson, even with DRS on the cars ahead, is still able to pass cars. That votes very well for the Audi sport car and their overall race pace then, at least in Jackson's car. But Hulkenberg is holding his own. He's now got back ahead of Ricciardo now. He's 7th. So Nico Hulkenberg, and the Audi sport car in particular, has a very decent race car underneath them. Charles Leclerc even for 5 seconds from Sergio Perez as Carlos Sainz tries to make it a Ferrari 1-2. Sainz is doing, Perez is doing really well, holding off Carlos Sainz, because Perez doesn't have DRS from the car in front, while Sainz is getting it in every section and not getting close. That's interesting. And here's Max Verstappen versus Lewis Hamilton again. It's like 2021 all over again. Is Max Verstappen at DRS? Is he going to try and move down the inside? No. Doesn't do it. There's a 22 race calendar this season with the exclusion of the Russian Grand Prix. We are down to 22 races now. Plenty of time, and still the longest season to date, I think. -1, although we are hoping to have Qatar. We confirmed to have Qatar next season, and we're hoping to have a race at Vegas as well. So that could make it 24 races next year, and that will definitely be the longest season to date. So Aiden Jackson now up into 14th place. Next up for him is Zhou Guan Yu in the Alfa Romeo. Lando Norris in the McLaren, who's fallen to 12th. So not looking good for the Mercedes power unit in terms of race pace, with Norris falling to 12th on his own. I don't think Norris has had a spin or anything anywhere. The ones that are not really losing out are the Audi cars. Hulkenberg is holding his own against Ricciardo. He's just ahead of him. Ricciardo will have DRS behind him. and Jackson is passing cars for fun again. So if there is Mercedes power unit fears, then Audi are not experiencing them at this very moment. Lewis Hamilton might be, as Max Verstappen got enough DRS to pass him. He goes around the outside. 2021 battle resumes between Hamilton and Verstappen, and it's into turn 1, and Hamilton and Verstappen almost made contact there, I think. But not quite. I think they got through unscathed. Doesn't mean they will for the rest of the race, however. It's almost inevitable, as 2021 will tell you. There's Guan Yu Zhou, or Zhou Guan Yu, my apologies for that, passing Lando Norris. So Norris is definitely struggling in that McLaren now. And now he's got Jackson all over him. And Jackson is about to claim his next victim in the passing quota for Aiden Jackson today. Down the inside of turn 4. And it's another sensational move by Jackson, as the Audi sport car has definitely got some pace in it. That is a very good looking race car. And Jackson is using it to its full potential at this very moment. P13 and still rising. Kevin Magnussen from 16th to 10th, a great opening stint to the race for Kevin Magnussen, very much unlike his teammate who had to pit for a front wing. Magnussen now in the points, and that'll be a very welcome sight for Haas if Magnussen can pull this off. The returnee, who didn't even have a seat going into this weekend, was called up to replace Nikita Mazepin, and he's doing a stellar job in this Grand Prix. Only qualified 16th, but Haas definitely have better pace than they did last year. They were confined back marker, aside from Aiden Jackson scoring 27 points for them. But, well, 28 points, I think it was, with the win in Monza, and the 3 points at other races as well. And Max Verstappen now down the outside of Lewis Hamilton, and these two resume battle again. And these two seem pretty much inseparable on the track, so to speak. The records are a bit further away from Verstappen, but he's the man that could probably take them in the future. Right now, they're locked in combat on the track, and so far, they've get through unscathed, as Aiden Jackson is ever closer to Zhou Guan Yu in the Alfa Romeo. We thought the Alfa Romeo would be a bit more of a challenge for the Audi sport cars, now that Jackson is approaching some kind of cars that... Oh no, Max Verstappen, pull it to the side. That's a retirement for the Red Bull powertrain. There were fears over the Red Bull powertrain's reliability, and they've reared their ugly head. And Max Verstappen is out to the Bahrain Grand Prix at the first race of the defending world champion, is out and will score 0 points. He was all over Hamilton in the Mercedes, and now he's out of the race. Oh my word, that is one thing we did not expect. The first retirement of the season goes to the world champion Max Verstappen then. Wow, shocks personified, although there was worries over the Red Bull powertrain reliability. But it is essentially a Honda engine. All that Red Bull did was put it under their banner and take over operations. It's essentially a Honda engine. And, well, very much flashbacks to 2015 when the McLaren was just riddled with reliability troubles. And from the start of the season, they're struggling again. And Red Bull have one car left in this race with Perez, who is valiantly holding off Carlos Sainz at the moment. And the all-powerful Ferrari. Perez doing a stellar job, to be fair. Well, here comes Aiden Jackson's next passing maneuver. Around the outside of Zhou Guan Yu in the Alfa Romeo. They're forcing him to take tighter lines around the inside. Jackson is not taking those lines. He's making his own lines on this track. And he almost passed Zhou Guan Yu, but to be fair, Zhou is hanging it in. But now he has DRS, Jackson, and there's nothing that Zhou Guan Yu can do. And he retires down the inside. Jackson suffering from terrible understeer in that car. And we know from the weekend that the Audi Sport F1 car is a bit of a diva, with Jackson spinning in the pre-season test as well. They could probably get some stability in that car in terms of driving it. So here's the retirement then from Verstappen. And, well, Max Verstappen knows this feeling all too well. Slowing to a stop in a Grand Prix. He had it so many times when they were powered by Renault a few years ago. And it's a much better reliability package. But still, the odd DNF by engine will still be a kind of thing that Verstappen's going to have to deal with. And he's out of the first race of the season. So now we have Aiden Jackson showing in 10th because Kevin Magnussen's in the pits. There he is. So looks like the pit windows are open. I think that might be the Audi Sport car. The Audi Sport F1 team pit crew out there ready to receive one of their drivers. And there's a problem there on the rear right of Valtteri Bottas as he leaves the pits, just to compound his matters in this Grand Prix. Bottas very out of position, and now down to the back and having pit stop trouble with his pit crew. Struggling to get on the rear right there. So it looks like the pit stops have started. Are Ferrari going to bring in Charles Leclerc first? He's up in the head by 6 seconds. So Jackson has made his way up to 10th, but he still has to pit. It'll be just interesting to see how much Jackson loses when he comes into the pits, because he is kind of out of position. Although, to be fair, he's back where he started, more or less, in 10th instead of 8th. And hear this, folks, the retirement of Max Verstappen as Charles Leclerc comes into the pits and puts on the hard tyres. The retirement of Max Verstappen means that Nico Hulkenberg in the Audi Sport F1 team car is running in 6th position, and which will become 5th and maybe even 4th as he passes Leclerc and Hamilton as they pit. And in comes Aiden Jackson for the first pit stop for Audi Sport F1 team. And it is of course the Raven West pit crew, thanks to Audi's partnership deal in terms of personnel with them. So let's hope we stay on board with Jackson to watch this pit stop. In he comes. And it looks a pretty slick stop. It's a very good stop by the Raven West pit crew. That's going to save Jackson some vital temps and up to a second. If he can make that work, he needs to make that work now, because that was a stellar stop from the Audi pit crew there. Well, the Raven West pit crew there, very experienced in the grid championships, so they know what they're doing, and they certainly proved why there. That partnership deal is really going to work out nicely, even if it's not financially based, it's more personnel based with the partnership with the Raven West Racing Company. So far, they have delivered on a very good race car today. Nico Hulkenberg up in 4th place. What a stunning sight that is. Great to see Nico Hulkenberg back. Hulkenberg and Magnussen are 2 men, and even Alex Albon for that matter. All 3 of them have unfinished business with this sport, and they're proving why their signings were absolutely vital. Magnussen running at the points, although now he's pitted, he's down to 12th. Hulkenberg running in 4th, and Albon having a decent race, albeit in 16th. And of course, the Williams car has a lot to do with that position. So here come the other stops then. Hulkenberg's coming in. Let's watch this stop from the Raven. We're going to call it Raven West. It's Audi Sport pit crew. And it's another decent stop. A little bit slow, but not by much. Hulkenberg should still be able to make that work. So, order as you were then, although George Russell has jumped Hamilton somewhere. That's interesting. So George Russell is now running 4th. That's interesting. He's got ahead of Hamilton somehow. So I wonder how that happened, because he was behind Hamilton on the racetrack. Sebastian Vettel is running 9th for Aston Martin, albeit that he'll have to stop for a set of medium tyres because he started on the hards. Meanwhile, though, he's going to try down the outside of Fernando Alonso, the 2 oldest men on the grid, or 2 of at least. The oldest being Fernando Alonso in his 40s, side by side with Sebastian Vettel there. And it was nice while it lasted, because unfortunately Aston Martin don't have the car to compete for points on a regular basis so far. And Sebastian Vettel is making the strategy somewhat work. He's in 9th place, although he's going to lose a lot of time when he pits, unfortunately. So here's Kevin Magnussen, just 1 point off a points playing position. In 11th place, Aiden Jackson now bearing down on him, 4 seconds behind him. Now that Jackson's made his stop, Jackson's really made that work for him. Where could he have been if he'd not spun on lap 1 though? Probably where he was. I think the Audi Sport F1 car is definitely equal with McLaren, as Hulkenberg is proving. So it's a very decent race car they've got. Let's hope Jackson can make that up and get back into the points today. He's definitely passed more than enough cars already. So Lance Stroll is now in 19th, but I'm assuming he may have to stop again. He doesn't have to by the regulations now, because I think he's put on another set or another compound of dry tyres on, and is still the requirement from a few years back. Just make more mandatory to switch to another compound of dry tyres. So Lance Stroll is ahead of Latifi. Mick Schumacher is running last. Of course, he had to have a front wing change as well. So how is Stroll going ahead of Schumacher then? I think Schumacher might have had an issue somewhere because he's last, but he was ahead of... I know he pitted second, so maybe that's got something to do with it. But in any case, yep. And was that Nicholas Latifi behind the last Stroll there? It might have been. I just saw earlier. So that really does compound Aston Martin's matters. Now Schumacher's passed Stroll as well. So Lance Stroll has got a problem, I think, because Schumacher's passed him, but he was a long way behind him. I think the timing screens are a bit messed up, but in any case, Lance Stroll is down in last place. What a drive this is from Nico Hulkenberg up into 6th. Absolutely stunning drive from both Audi cars. It's just a shame with Jackson is on the points, but I don't think that'll last too much longer. How's he doing? 4.0. Is he closing on Magnussen? I think he is. It's slow, but I think he is. I think he is closing on Magnussen slowly. Might get him before the end of this race. So George Russell then, a second clear of Lewis Hamilton on his official Mercedes debut, let's say. Of course, he subbed in for Hamilton in 2020 in Chequered. At this very race, in fact. But it was on the shortened layout in the Chequered Grand Prix, of course. Where he almost took a memorable victory, bar for problems at the pit stop. And problems there for Sebastian Vettel as well. Sebastian Vettel's out of this race in the Aston Martin. Oh, it was going so well. He was up in 9th place. He probably would have had to lose that out anyway. But yeah, just not a loss of performance. A total loss of power for Sebastian Vettel. And he is out of this race. And two very surprising retirements to start the year. Vettel and Verstappen both out now. And, well, Aston Martin weren't having a great weekend to begin with, so it doesn't really matter. But that will just make their mood even more rock bottom. And Aston Martin, they need to really get going over there because they're facing a seriously long season if it keeps going like this. Lance Stroll is running last behind the Haas of Mick Schumacher. So Carlos Sainz still not able to pass Sergio Perez in the Red Bull car. The Ferrari was all conquering this weekend, but Sainz just could not pass Perez even with the advantage of DRS. So either Perez is doing wonderfully well, which he probably is. We know how Perez can defend in a valiant manner, as we know from Abu Dhabi last season. But Carlos Sainz should really have the legs of him here. So maybe Sainz has got a adrenaline in that car, and that's why he can't pass it, because Sainz is more than a capable competitor. Anyone who is in this sport is a more than capable competitor. So Carlos Sainz, the fact that he's not passing Sergio Perez is rather unusual, albeit both these drivers are on hard tyres now, going to the end of the race. So over the last couple of laps, Jackson is really lighting up the timing screen to the point where he's just got under the 2-second mark between him and Kevin Magnussen. Aiden Jackson is not out of this race for points yet, as he's closing on the Haas ahead. This man, Charles Leclerc, thoroughly dominant. Although, having said that, it's only 6 seconds between him and Perez. It's not the runaway victory we were expecting. Oh, I don't want to jinx him, but Charles Leclerc, he knows what it's like to lead this race before. Like in 2019, he dominated proceedings after passing Vettel. And there was something strange with the engine, and it dropped him to 3rd. He was lucky to finish there during the safety car period at the end of the race. Nico Hulkenberg is still doing wonderfully well in P6 for Audi Sport F1 team. They have definitely exceeded the expectations this weekend. And they've come in at a good time because of the introduction of the cost cap last season as well, in a bid to bring the field closer together. Cost mandates are monitored and restricted to overspending, and Audi Sport have come in at a very good time because it means they can be in positions like this right from the word go. It's all to attract new teams, and they certainly attracted the attention of Audi, more to the point when they wanted to bring their entry forward and my goodness, they are certainly reaping the benefits of that right now. And this Daniel Ricciardo, Nico Hulkenberg, sorry, well in the points, and Aiden Jackson on the verge of getting another one for himself, because he's forever closing on Kevin Magnussen. It's just 2 seconds now between him and Magnussen and 10th place. Does Ricciardo look closer there to Nico Hulkenberg, or is that just me? Daniel looking a lot closer to Hulkenberg there. Jackson struggling out of turn 10 as the Audi sport car continues to be a bit of a diva in terms of handling at the moment. It's something Jackson has definitely got a handle of, but it's still not completely to his liking. And having said that, he does have underfloor damage, as we learned from the beginning of the race, in a hit from Ricciardo, which was unintentional, of course. And Ricciardo is closer to Nico Hulkenberg. Unfortunately, it looks like Nico Hulkenberg is falling like a stone. Does their engine sound rough, perhaps? Round the outside, then Daniel Ricciardo. Oh no! Is Hulkenberg got a gremlin in that car now? Is the Mercedes power unit really its ugly head on Hulkenberg's car as well, as Ricciardo is side by side? Hulkenberg holding it through turn 2, and now here comes the Alpine of Alonso, and Hulkenberg is now going to sink 2 places down by the looks of it. He's trying to hang it in with Ricciardo. I think there might be a problem developing in that Audi sport car. Hulkenberg down to 7th. Oh no, this is awful luck for Hulkenberg. Let's hope he can make it to the end. We've only got about 9 laps to go, I think. And, oh no. Well, I've got everything crossed for Nico Hulkenberg, but right now he is falling. And is there something wrong? And what is that vote for Aiden Jackson now? Does he have a problem in that car? Well, right now you'd have to say the answer is no, because he's right up with Magnussen now. And he's got DRS. So I think there might be a bit of a, not a terminal problem, but maybe a power output issue. Mercedes, as we said at the beginning of the race, definitely worries over the power output over the course of a race distance. And right now we're seeing it, as Hamilton fell behind Sainz and Perez in a corner or two, and now Hulkenberg is sinking. Lando Norris hasn't done well either. He's down in 17th, so there's definite concerns over the Mercedes power unit performance over a race distance, but not for Aiden Jackson. He's past Magnussen. He's back into 10th. Well, if Aiden Jackson certainly isn't having any problems in his car at the moment. Magnussen locked up into the final corner, made it even easier for him. Aiden Jackson is now back in the points from being back at the grid field at end of lap 1. Once again, we're seeing a fantastic overtaking masterclass by Aiden Jackson. Look at the speed he had coming out of that corner. Magnussen, to be fair, held it out, but oh my goodness, what must Haas be thinking? The man that they had on loan last season, who they won a race with, is now denying them a points finish. And back to racing now. We have Albon and Stoddard side by side through turn 1 and 2, and Bottas is keen to join this party. Valtteri Bottas out of position in P16, while his teammate Zhou Guanyu is up in 12th. Unfortunately, I don't think he's going to score from there, but it's been a very impressive debut for the rookie, the only rookie on the grid now, with the replacement of Nikita Mazepin with Kevin Magnussen. It's still a decent race for Haas, considering their qualifying was not really that stellar, to be fair. Lando Norris is still struggling. I think he's just repassed Albon. So definite problems in the Mercedes power department for everyone. For everyone bar Jackson, to be honest, which is quite surprising, really. Let's hope Nico Hulkenberg can hold on to this points playing position. He's down in P8 now, 3 seconds clear of Esteban Ocon, who may have Aiden Jackson closing in on him. The gap's 2 seconds. I think he's got more than enough laps to make it, so Jackson getting his head down, he might just get P9. And that's only 1 place behind where he started. He fell at the back of the field on lap 1 with a spin after hitting Alonso's left rear tyre. Alonso doesn't seem affected by that collision either, so it was a harmless incident. Well, this man Charles Leclerc absolutely dominating now. 7 seconds between him and Perez. Normally at this stage, if Mercedes were leading, they'd be about 15 seconds ahead. So the Ferrari is definitely the best on the grid, but it's not all conquering like the Mercedes was. That bodes well. It's definitely been a good advert for Formula 1 in 2022, this race. Jackson, we've had passing cars left and right, and the dominance is there from the Ferrari power unit, but it's not all conquering. The Alfa Romeos have certainly been out of position this weekend, with Shogun U 12th and Bottas in 16th, or 15th, my apologies. But yeah, Alfa Romeo getting no points, Haas getting no points either. So with the Ferrari powered cars, only the two Ferraris will be scoring points. The bulk of the top 10 is Mercedes and 2 Alpines. So we've got 5 Mercedes cars and 2 Renault powered cars in the top 10 there. The only Ferrari powered cars is the 2 Ferraris themselves. Well, we certainly didn't expect this at the start of the year, or the start of the race. But Daniel Ricciardo, credit to him, he's had a storming race. Great start, got ahead of both Audis. He stayed ahead of both Audis, he even repassed Hulkenberg later on. Although I believe Hulkenberg is carrying a problem of some kind. So definitely credit to the likes of Daniel Ricciardo and Fernando Alonso today. Alonso was outside the top 10, he's now running 7th. And we just hope that Nico Hulkenberg can make it to the end. We're approaching the last stages of the race now. Aston Martin's horrible weekend really. He's continuing his Lance Stroll, he's falling back from Mick Schumacher. Although Schumacher hasn't had a real storming race himself, he's still behind the Williams and the TV and Albon, and that's not really on pace. That's the fact that Schumacher had to change his front wing in about the second or third lap of the race. After a bit of a collision with an Alfa Romeo, I think it was Bottas, it really could have been avoided. So Schumacher not having the best of moves there. Aiden Jackson is completely dropping Kevin Magnussen by 2 seconds. And he's closing on Esteban Ocon. He's going to have DRS in a moment. Or be in DRS range anyway. Shogun Yu, credit to him, he's had a good debut up in P12. But I think people were expecting a lot more of the Alfa Romeos, especially with Bottas in P15. And Lando Norris, who's been struggling all day. Great start, but he's fallen like a stone, unlike his teammate, who's still running in P6. I think the fact that Ricciardo has Alonso and Hulkenberg behind him certainly will help. Meanwhile though, Jackson is now in DRS range of Esteban Ocon. And this might be the final car he passes this evening for P9. I'm trying to move there. He's made some stunning moves, Aiden Jackson. Not just the amount of cars, it's how he's passed them. The majority of them around the outside into that corner there that we just passed, turn 4. Down into turn 8. Or turn 9 rather. On the left, going into turn 10 might be turn 9. One of the most trickiest corners on this circuit. See Jackson coming out of it nicely. Came out of it nicely as DRS. Not going to be close enough to pass Ocon on this occasion. The Audi sport car is it's a very good car. It's a very good race car that they've got there. I think the overall package at Audi is nothing more sensational, to be fair. Will Jackson pass Ocon in this corner before the DRS zone, or will he wait? He won't wait around. Jackson's not waiting around, but decides against it. He knows he has DRS in the next straight. Ocon will have nothing to defend. Will he force Jackson to go the long way around him? Jackson decides not to pass him yet. The first and last sectors where Jackson has been strongest this weekend. And here we go. If he gets a good exit out of this corner, he will go to the inside. Ocon covers and Jackson goes round the outside again. Just giving it an open invitation, making Jackson go the long way round, and he has done it. That is P9 for Aiden Jackson. Another sensational recovery drive from the Mercedes reserve driver. He's had a great recovery today, back in P9. He was back at the field on lap 1 again. Another sensational drive by this young man.
Phenomenal drive, mate. You're up to P9 now with 4 laps to go. Nico is directly ahead in P8, but he has been nursing the car in the last 2 laps due to power output issues. So if you catch him, we want you to hold position to ensure we bring both cars under the points. Repeat, we're on for a double points here, mate. Hold position. He'll make it, right? He should do. Okay, understood. Copy that. I've got everything crossed through.
So the team orders have come in at Audi then. Jackson ordered to hold position if he catches Hulkenberg at any point in the next few laps. We've just got about 4 left to run. Jackson's 3 seconds behind him, so I don't think he will catch him. He's probably used the best of those tyres, making his way into the position he's in now. So Audi have made the call, hold position. Make sure we get both cars to the end. And then in this first race for a new team, that's a crucial order and a correct one, and Jackson understanding it instantly. Well, honourable mention to George Russell here, still ahead of his teammate, and still Carlos Sainz can't pass Perez. Very interesting turn of events here with Charles Leclerc somewhat dominating at the front, but Sainz and Perez have been stuck like glue together on this track, but Sainz cannot pass him. So maybe the Ferrari isn't so good on its hard tyres, maybe. Because you'd think with the power advantage and the car advantage that Red Bull have seemingly, or Ferrari seemingly have over Red Bull over the course of this weekend, you expect Sainz to pass Perez rather easily. Well, meanwhile, Mick Schumacher has been rather put in the shade by Kevin Magnussen this weekend. I think we expected that, given Magnussen's experience, many more years than Mick has. But certainly not been the star he would have hoped for, or Haas for that matter. There's no points on the board. But Kevin Magnussen's the one that's come closest, so that's what people will look at. Max Albon, a very honourable mention this weekend. He's actually going to finish 17th by the looks of it. He would have probably been, on law of averages, 21st, or maybe even like 19th or 18th, actually. And it's both Aston Martins, because they've had a very torrid weekend, so to speak. Definitely needs some work going on there. Norris is battling with Tsunoda, really proving Mercedes' power output troubles is certainly a thing. As Audi explained to Jackson, he'd been struggling with power output as well, so the Mercedes definitely isn't the all of dominance it has been over the last few years. Looks like Ferrari and Red Bull powertrain have finally caught up, and Mercedes have their own issues on top of it. We are definitely in for a much closer season than we've had in the past, although 2021 went right to the final lap, to be fair. But that was only between 2 men. We've got another maybe 2 or 3 to add to that, with Perez and the all-powerful Ferraris of Leclerc and Sainz. But Sainz, to be fair, is still not passing Perez as we end towards the end of this race. And fair play to Nico Hulkenberg rather, because it looks like he's hanging with Alonso now, so it looks like those power output issues have cleared up for him. Unfortunately, he can't get back past the Alpine. But to be fair, those tyres probably look moderately used now, even though they are hard tyres. So here we go then, the penultimate lap of the opening race of the 2022 season. And I have to say, it's definitely been a promising start. Maybe not much racing at the very front, but I think we expected that, given the car advantage that Ferrari and Red Bull in particular have over the rest of the field at the moment. But that will come. But in the midfield, there's certainly been a lot of passing moves today, mainly by that man, Aiden Jackson. He had to make his way through the field again. He's become a bit of a master at it. Some would say he shouldn't have to, but if you can do it, then you might as well. It does definitely give your team a sign of reassurance But Jackson wasn't the greatest of qualifiers in Formula 3. That was really why he was down in the order sometimes. In Formula 2, to be fair to him, he only had one real incident, and that was it. I don't know who could forget the thing in Monza when they went full wide.
With the engine.
Oh no. Oh.
Coffee.
Oh, Charles Leclerc. He's bringing back the jokes. There's something strange with the engine. He brought it back for a joke. Oh my goodness me. That was probably no joke to anybody here. Last lap, Charles Leclerc has dominated. And he even had spare capacity for a bit of a scary throwback there with that message. But yeah, I think he gave his crew and his the Ferrari team a few scary seconds there before that revelation. But aside from that, he has been thoroughly dominant today, Charles Leclerc. 8 seconds between him and Perez. Normally at this stage, Ferrari and Mercedes would probably be ahead by about 15 to 20. So maybe the gaps at the front have come down a bit. But it really is, as expected, for Ferrari and Charles Leclerc. The season that could be a season of destiny for him in particular. It's Charles Leclerc round the final corner. There's nothing strange with the engine that can stop him now. Charles Leclerc wins the Bahrain Grand Prix in dominating fashion, swiping away the demons of 2019, even with a joke in the process. An absolutely thoroughly dominant win for Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez, great mention to him today, keeping ahead of Carlos Sainz. George Russell will beat Lewis Hamilton on their first race together as teammates. No surprise there for driver of the day. Goes to Aiden Jackson again for another sensational comeback for the field. And everyone, please give a round of applause to Audi Sport F1 team as Nico Hulkenberg and Aiden Jackson are going to score points on their debut. They've definitely got a very decent race car. It's 8th and 9th for Audi Sport F1 team with a sensational drive by Jackson to boot. What a debut.
That is P8 and P9, but that is double points for the team on the first weekend. Sensational drive by yourself, mate. You deserve that. What a comeback once again. Guys, the car was brilliant. That's down to you. I'm glad Nico could make it. It's just a shame we couldn't get more, but this is just the start. We're coming for these guys. Well done, boys. You deserve it.
Oh, if that's a precedent for the rest of the season, we're coming for these guys, Aiden Jackson says. Well, if that's the case, I can't wait. Because if Jackson can pull off drives like that through the field after falling down on lap 1, what might Audi achieve later this season? Let's hope they get closer to the front. Can't wait for it. Charles Leclerc wins the Bahrain Grand Prix. Sergio Perez took the fastest lap and a very well-earned second place, having Sainz behind him almost the whole time. Honourable mention also to Daniel Ricciardo, finishing 6th after a great start. The heart sunk a little bit for Nico Hulkenberg, but he still does get points on his debut race for Audi Sport F1 team. What a debut for them. Kevin Magnussen just missing out on points for Haas. Guan Yu Zhou, great debut for him. Oh, Zhou Guan Yu, I'm going to keep doing that, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, Zhou Guan Yu up in 12th, great debut for him. Pierre Gasly only 13th ahead of Norris and Tsunoda. 2 retirements being Sebastian Vettel and Max Verstappen. The world champion has 0 points at the end of the first race. Points pretty academic. It's actually where they finished. Perez getting an extra point for the fastest lap though, of course. But it's in the constructors where things are really rosy for the Reds of Ferrari. But Mercedes have jumped into second because of Red Bull only having one car scoring points. So that's a great return for them given where they were at the start of the weekend. But Aston Martin need to get their heads down. Double points finish for Audi. Puts them on the board as well. Charles Leclerc has wiped the demons of 2019 away and dominated the first race of the newest era of Formula 1. We didn't get the close racing at the front because the Ferrari is an all-conquering car at this very moment. But we've certainly had a great advert for the newest era in Formula 1 with some great racing throughout. We'll see you in Saudi Arabia for some more when Formula 1 returns. We're back, and it was great.